So picture this. Surveillance cameras catch a killer red-handed, leaving the scene of the crime. You'd think the case is open and shut, right? But what if multiple credible witnesses come forward and swear they saw the victim alive for hours after the killer was long gone? How is that even possible? Well, today we're diving into the Jessika Kalaher case, a story where a shocking medical discovery turned an impossible timeline into a solved but tragic crime. These are the words of Jessika Kalaher herself, a woman whose life was all about optimism and looking forward. It's a really poignant place to start as we get into the incredibly confusing and heartbreaking events that unfolded. All right, so let's go back. We begin on Labor Day, 2009, with a series of events that would end in a truly horrific discovery and leave investigators wrestling with a mystery that seemed to completely defy logic. So who was Jessika Kalaher? Well, at 27, she was someone really building her future. She was living in Austin, Texas, working 2 jobs to pay off student loans while also studying for her master's degree. The goal was to become an elementary school teacher. Her family described her as incredibly focused, but also a lot of fun. You know, a classic glass half full kind of person who had her whole life ahead of her. Her last day was a really happy one. She spent it swimming and having a barbecue with her cousin and best friend, Melanie. Around 1:30 in the morning, Jessika dropped Melanie off. She said no to staying the night because she wanted to be fresh for work the next day. She just had one last thing to do, a quick run to Walmart for some dog food. That was the last time anyone who knew her would see her alive. So the next morning, when Jessika doesn't show up for work, a worried Melanie goes looking for her. She finds Jessica's white Kia in a busy parking lot. Inside, Jessika was slumped over in the driver's seat. But something was immediately, obviously wrong. The seat was pushed all the way back, way too far for the 5'4" Jessika to have ever reached the pedals. She was completely unresponsive, and soon it was confirmed Jessika had been brutally murdered. Police start questioning people in the area, and this is where the case just takes a turn into the bizarre. Several witnesses come forward, and they all claim they'd seen Jessika alive, moving around in her car that morning, hours after police believed she'd been attacked. They described her as looking confused, lethargic, just acting really erratically. And this created the central paradox of the entire case. On one hand, you have hard physical evidence, surveillance video showing a male suspect parking Jessica's car at 2:50 a.m. and then leaving for good. But on the other hand, you have these credible eyewitnesses who saw Jessika moving inside that same car hours later. How could both of those things possibly be true? To solve this puzzle, investigators had to turn to the only impartial witness they had, the Walmart's 24-hour surveillance cameras. And the footage they found laid out a absolutely chilling sequence of events. Okay, so at 1:45 a.m., Jessika walks into the store looking perfectly normal. Just moments after she walks out, a man in a brown shirt follows her, and you can see him pick up his pace. Her car, which was unfortunately parked behind a tree, is blocked from view, but at 1:51 a.m. it pulls away. Then, there's a gap of almost an hour. At 2:50 a.m., her car reappears, pulling into the exact spot where she would eventually be found. The same man gets out, walks back across the street to the Walmart lot, gets into a distinctive red pickup truck, and just speeds away. Police released images of the man and his truck to the public, and pretty soon, a tip came in from a woman who recognized the man as her fiancé's best friend, a 37-year-old named Crispin Harrell. Now, when police finally found Crispin Harrell, it was pretty clear his guilty conscience was already getting to him. He'd hastily tried to paint parts of his very distinctive truck black. And when they confronted him with the evidence, his story just completely fell apart. So Harrell admits to being with Jessika, but he spins this wild story about a consensual hookup they'd arranged online. He claimed she was the one who drove them and that she just willingly gave him her debit card out of kindness. But every single claim was a lie. There was zero record of them ever communicating. The driver's seat position proved she couldn't have been driving. And, of course, the video clearly showed him stalking her, not meeting her. The second that detectives mentioned what they saw on those surveillance cameras, Harrell's confidence just evaporated. He immediately asked for a lawyer and stopped talking. Police were sure they had their guy, but they still couldn't get past that one glaring problem, the impossible timeline. So this left investigators with their central, nagging question. How could Jessika possibly be alive after her attacker was gone? Well, the breakthrough didn't come from a detective's hunch or another witness.
It came from the pages of a medical journal. Detectives stumbled across an article describing a phenomenon called delayed death by strangulation. It explained that a victim can actually survive an initial attack, only to pass away hours later as their brain slowly shuts down from a catastrophic lack of oxygen. A forensic medical expert, Dr. Bill Smock, broke down this tragic process for them. When the brain is deprived of oxygen, a victim quickly loses consciousness and might even have seizures. After only 15 seconds, brain cells actually start to die. This also explained why Jessika lost control of her bodily functions. But here's the crucial discovery. While the higher brain functions, personality, awareness, everything that made Jessika who she was, are destroyed, the brainstem can keep the body breathing for hours. Those erratic movements the witnesses saw, that was a body functioning on autopilot long after the person inside was gone.
And that was the tragic, awful reality. Jessika wasn't acting strangely. The person her friends and family knew and loved was already gone. What those witnesses saw were the final, involuntary movements of a body shutting down after a catastrophic and fatal brain injury. Armed with this incredible medical breakthrough, prosecutors finally had the key. They could unlock the impossible timeline and hold Jessica's killer accountable.
Now, the road to justice was a long one. Crispin Harrell was finally indicted for capital murder in 2013. His first trial, unbelievably, ended in a mistrial. At the second trial in 2018, the prosecution built its case around that irrefutable video evidence and the new medical explanation that solved the timeline paradox. The defense, on the other hand, hinged its argument on a lack of Harrell's DNA on Jessica's body, which experts argued could have easily degraded in the intense Texas heat.
This time, the jury saw through all the lies. They found Crispin Harrell guilty of capital murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole. And while the verdict brought a legal conclusion, there really was no true closure for Jessica's family. As her cousin John said, the conviction didn't change the fact that he still gets to live and Jessika doesn't. Her father grieved for the future milestones he'd never see, like walking her down the aisle, just a painful reminder of the real human cost of this senseless act. The Jessika Kalaher case is such a powerful reminder that sometimes the key to unlocking justice isn't found in a clue left at the scene, but in a scientific principle that was hidden in plain sight the whole time. It really leaves us with a haunting question. How many other impossible crimes out there are just one medical discovery away from being solved?